Malik knew something wasn't right. The day his dad was supposed to marry the beautiful Vanessa, everything seemed perfect until Malik uncovered a chilling secret. In a room full of wedding guests, just as the vows were about to be exchanged, Malik did the unthinkable. He stood up and stopped the ceremony. But it's what he revealed next that sent shockwaves through the room. Before we continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching or listening from. What city or country? Malik Carter fidgeted in the back pew of the church, his small hands gripping the polished wood until his knuckles turned white. The 9-year-old's eyes darted from his father, Jerome, standing tall at the altar, to the woman in white gliding down the aisle. Vanessa Turner's smile gleamed like the pearls adorning her neck, but Malik knew better. Behind that perfect facade lurked a secret that threatened to tear his world apart. Just yesterday, he'd overheard her on the phone, her voice a hushed whisper in the kitchen. "Marcus, everything's set. Once I'm Mrs. Carter, we'll make our move. Jerome won't know what hit him." The memory sent a chill down Malik's spine. He glanced around the packed church, searching for a friendly face, someone who might believe him. But all he saw were beaming smiles and teary eyes, everyone caught up in the romance of the moment. "Dearly beloved," the pastor's voice boomed, snapping Malik back to reality. "We are gathered here today." Malik's heart raced. He had to do something, say something. But who would believe a kid over the woman who'd charmed everyone in their lives? Jerome caught his son's eye and winked, his face radiating joy. Malik's stomach twisted. His dad had no idea of the danger he was in. As Vanessa reached the altar, she turned and locked eyes with Malik. Her smile never wavered, but there was a coldness in her gaze that made him shrink back into the pew. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Malik's throat went dry. This was his chance. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, daring him to speak up. "Very well, then. Jerome Carter, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Jerome beamed. "I do." Malik's hands balled into fists. He had to act now. "And do you, Vanessa Turner, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Vanessa's lips parted, ready to seal Jerome's fate. "Wait!" Malik shouted, jumping to his feet. The church fell silent, all eyes turning to the small boy in the back. Jerome's brow furrowed. "Malik, what's wrong, son?" Malik's legs shook as he stepped into the aisle. "Dad, you can't marry her. She's not who you think she is." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Vanessa's smile faltered for a split second before returning, brighter than ever. "Oh, sweetie," she cooed, her voice dripping with concern. "I know this is a big change for you, but I promise, I'm not trying to replace your mother. We're going to be a family." Jerome stepped down from the altar, approaching his son. "Malik, we talked about this. I know it's hard, but Vanessa loves us both." Malik shook his head frantically. "No, Dad, you don't understand. I heard her on the phone yesterday. She's planning to." "Malik." Vanessa cut in, her voice sharp. "I think you're just confused, honey. Why don't we talk about this after the ceremony?" Jerome knelt down, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Son, I know this is scary, but Vanessa's right. This isn't the time or place for this conversation." Malik felt the weight of everyone's stares. He saw the judgment in their eyes, the assumption that he was just a troublemaking kid acting out. Hot tears pricked at the corners of his eyes. "But Dad..." "That's enough, Malik," Jerome said firmly. "Go sit down. We'll talk later." Defeated, Malik slumped back to his seat. As the ceremony resumed, he caught sight of a man slipping into the back of the church. Tall, with close-cropped hair and a sharp suit, he looked out of place among the other guests. When the man's eyes met Malik's, a chill ran down the boy's spine. He knew, without a doubt, that this was Marcus, Vanessa's secret accomplice. As the newlyweds shared their first kiss, Malik's mind raced. He had to find proof, something concrete that would make his dad believe him. But how? The reception was a blur of forced smiles and awkward small talk. Malik picked at his food, his appetite gone. Across the room, he watched Vanessa work the crowd, her laugh tinkling like wind chimes. No one else seemed to notice how her eyes kept darting to the corner where Marcus lurked, nursing a glass of champagne. "You okay, champ?" Jerome's voice startled Malik out of his thoughts. Malik looked up at his father, seeing the concern etched on his face. He wanted so badly to spill everything, to make his dad understand the danger they were in, but the words caught in his throat. "I'm fine," he mumbled, pushing his plate away. "Can I be excused?" Jerome sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. "Malik, I know this is a lot to take in, but Vanessa's part of our family now. You've got to give her a chance." Malik nodded, not trusting himself to speak. As he stood to leave, he caught sight of Vanessa slipping out a side door, Marcus following close behind. Without thinking, Malik darted after them, weaving through the crowd. He pressed himself against the wall outside, straining to hear their hushed conversation. "Everything's going according to plan," Vanessa whispered. "But that kid, he's going to be a problem." Marcus's voice was cold. "We'll take care of him. Once Jerome's out of the picture, it'll be easy enough to make it look like an accident." Malik's blood ran cold. They weren't just after his dad. They wanted him gone, too. A hand clamped down on his shoulder, and Malik nearly jumped out of his skin. He whirled around to find Vanessa looming over him, her smile now a predatory grin. "Eavesdropping isn't polite, Malik," she hissed. "I thought your father raised you better than that." Malik tried to back away, but Vanessa's grip tightened. "Let me go," he said, his voice shaking. Vanessa leaned in close, her breath hot against his ear. "Listen carefully, you little brat. No one's going to believe you. You're just a kid throwing a tantrum because daddy's moving on. If you know what's good for you, you'll keep your mouth shut." She released him with a shove, nearly sending him sprawling. As Malik stumbled back into the reception hall, his mind raced. He needed proof, something concrete that would make his dad believe him. An idea struck him like lightning. His dad's tablet, the one he used for work. It had a voice recorder app. If he could get Vanessa to admit her plan on tape. Malik slipped away from the party, his heart pounding as he made his way to his father's home office. The tablet sat on the desk, its screen dark. With shaking hands, Malik powered it on and found the recording app. Now came the hard part. He had to get Vanessa alone, get her to confess. But how? As if on cue, the door creaked open. Malik whirled around, expecting to see his father or one of the guests. Instead, he found himself face to face with Marcus. The man's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing in here, kid?" Malik's mind raced. He had to think fast. I was looking for my dad. I wanted to apologize for earlier." Marcus took a step closer, his presence filling the small office. "Is that so? Funny. I could have sworn I saw Jerome out on the dance floor with his lovely new bride." Malik backed up, his hand fumbling behind him for the tablet. If he could just hit record. "You know," Marcus said, his voice dangerously low, "Vanessa warned me about you, said you might cause trouble. I didn't think a little runt like you would be smart enough to figure things out." Malik's fingers found the tablet screen. He tapped frantically, praying he hit the right button. "I don't know what you're talking about," Malik said, trying to keep his voice steady. Marcus laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, I think you do. You overheard something you shouldn't have, didn't you? And now you're in here, snooping around, trying to play detective." He lunged forward, grabbing Malik by the collar of his suit jacket. "Listen up, you little punk. Your daddy's got a fat life insurance policy, and Vanessa and I intend to collect. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, we'll make sure you go down with him. Got it?" Malik nodded frantically, his heart pounding so hard he was sure Marcus could hear it. Marcus shoved him away. "Good. Now get back out there and act like nothing's wrong. Or else." As soon as Marcus left the room, Malik scrambled for the tablet. His hands shook as he stopped the recording and played it back. There it was, Marcus's confession, clear as day. Relief washed over him, followed quickly by a new wave of fear. He had the proof, but now what? How could he get it to his dad without Vanessa or Marcus noticing? The sound of approaching footsteps sent Malik into a panic. He quickly locked the tablet and shoved it back onto the desk, then ducked behind a large armchair just as the door opened. "I'm telling you, something's not right with that kid." Vanessa's voice drifted in. "He knows too much." "Relax," Marcus replied. "I took care of it. He won't be a problem anymore." Malik held his breath, praying they wouldn't discover him. "We need to move up the timeline," Vanessa said. "The sooner we get rid of Jerome, the better." "Agreed. I've got a guy who can make it look like an accident. Give me a week, tops." Their voices faded as they moved back down the hallway. Malik waited until he was sure they were gone before emerging from his hiding spot. His mind raced. A week. That's all the time he had to save his father's life. As Malik slipped back into the reception, he caught sight of Jerome and Vanessa sharing a dance. His father's face was alight with joy, completely oblivious to the danger he was in. Malik's fists clenched at his sides. He had the proof now. All he had to do was find the right moment to reveal it. But as he watched Vanessa lean in to whisper something in Jerome's ear, a chill ran down Malik's spine. He realized with growing dread that exposing the truth might not be enough. Vanessa and Marcus were dangerous. Who knew how far they'd go to keep their secret? For the first time in his young life, Malik truly understood what it meant to be afraid. But as he looked at his father, laughing and twirling his new bride on the dance floor, Malik knew he had no choice. He had to be brave. He had to save his dad, no matter the cost. With renewed determination, Malik squared his shoulders and made his way towards the dance floor. It was time to end this charade once and for all. Malik's heart thundered in his chest as he approached the dance floor, the tablet clutched tightly against his side. The joyous sounds of the wedding reception felt like a cruel mockery of the danger lurking beneath the surface. He watched as his father twirled Vanessa, both of them laughing, oblivious to the storm about to break. "Dad," Malik called out, his voice barely audible over the music. "Dad, I need to talk to you. It's important." Jerome glanced over, his smile faltering at the sight of his son's distressed face. He whispered something to Vanessa before making his way over to Malik. "What's wrong, son?" Jerome asked, kneeling down to meet Malik's eyes. Malik opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat as he saw Vanessa watching them intently from across the room. Her eyes narrowed, a silent warning that sent chills down his spine. I just... Malik stammered, his courage faltering. Jerome sighed, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Listen, I know this is a big change, but Vanessa loves us both. You've got to give her a chance." Malik shook his head frantically. "No, Dad, you don't understand. She's not who you think she is. I have proof." "Malik, enough." Jerome cut him off, his voice stern. "This behavior has to stop. You're ruining a beautiful day for everyone." The hurt in his father's eyes was like a knife to Malik's heart. He watched helplessly as Jerome stood and walked back to Vanessa, who greeted him with a triumphant smile. Defeated, Malik slumped into a nearby chair, the tablet heavy in his hands. He'd failed. No one would listen to him, not even his own father. "Tough break, kid," a gruff voice said from behind him. Malik turned to see Marcus looming over him, a predatory grin on his face. The man's presence sent a jolt of fear through Malik's body. "Stay away from me," Malik warned, his voice shaking. Marcus chuckled, the sound devoid of any warmth. "Or what? You'll run to Daddy. Face it, no one believes you. You're just a little boy crying wolf." Malik's fingers tightened around the tablet. "I have proof," he hissed. "I recorded you and Vanessa talking about your plan." For a moment, Marcus's composure slipped, a flicker of panic crossing his face, but was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating look. "Hand it over," Marcus demanded, holding out his hand. Malik clutched the tablet closer. "No way. I'm going to show everyone the truth." Marcus leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "Listen carefully, you little brat. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll make sure your daddy has a very unfortunate accident. And then where will you be? All alone in this big, bad world." Tears stung Malik's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He wouldn't give Marcus the satisfaction of seeing him cry. "You won't get away with this," Malik said, his voice stronger than he felt. Marcus straightened up, adjusting his tie with a smirk. "Watch me." As Marcus sauntered away, Malik's mind raced. He couldn't let them win, couldn't let his father marry a woman who wanted him dead. But how could he expose the truth without putting his dad in even more danger? The answer came to him in a flash of inspiration. The DJ's booth. If he could get to the sound system, he could play the recording for everyone to hear. Malik scanned the room, plotting his route. The DJ was busy chatting up one of the bridesmaids, his equipment momentarily unattended. This was his chance. Taking a deep breath, Malik weaved through the crowd, keeping his head down to avoid drawing attention. He was just a few feet from the booth when a hand clamped down on his arm. "And where do you think you're going?" Vanessa's saccharine voice made his skin crawl. Malik looked up into her face, seeing the malice behind her perfect smile. "Let go of me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Vanessa's grip tightened. "Oh, sweetie, I'm just looking out for you. Your father's worried sick about your behavior. Why don't we go have a little chat in private?" Before Malik could protest, Vanessa was steering him towards a secluded corner of the reception hall. His heart raced as he realized how close he'd come to exposing her, and how dangerous that made him. "Now then," Vanessa said, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper, "what exactly do you think you're doing?" Malik met her gaze defiantly. "I know what you and Marcus are planning. I won't let you hurt my dad." Vanessa's laugh was like ice water down his spine. "You stupid child. You have no idea what you're up against. Do you really think anyone will believe you over me?" "They will when they hear the recording," Malik shot back. For a split second, fear flashed in Vanessa's eyes, but was quickly replaced by a calculating look that made Malik's blood run cold. "Oh, Malik," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I had such hopes for us. I really thought we could be a family. But if you insist on being difficult..." She leaned in close, her lips nearly touching his ear. "Accidents happen all the time, you know. Children fall down stairs, get hit by cars. It would be such a tragedy, wouldn't it? Your poor father, losing you so soon after finding happiness again." Malik's breath caught in his throat. The threat was clear and terrifyingly real. You wouldn't," he stammered. Vanessa's smile was razor-sharp. "Try me." With that, she released his arm and glided back to the dance floor, leaving Malik trembling in her wake. For a moment, Malik considered giving up. The fear was overwhelming, threatening to paralyze him. But then he thought of his father, kind, loving Jerome, who deserved so much better than this viper in a wedding dress. With renewed determination, Malik squared his shoulders and made his way back to the DJ booth. This time, luck was on his side. The DJ had stepped away, leaving his equipment unattended. Malik's hands shook as he connected the tablet to sound system. He found the recording and hovered his finger over the play button, knowing that once he pressed it, there would be no going back. "Here goes nothing," he whispered to himself. Just as he was about to hit play, a commotion erupted on the dance floor. Malik looked up to see Jerome on one knee, holding Vanessa's hand. The room fell silent as Jerome began to speak. "Vanessa, my love," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know we just got married, but I want to reaffirm my commitment to you in front of all our friends and family." Vanessa's eyes widened in surprise, but Malik could see the triumphant gleam behind her tears of joy. "You've brought so much happiness into my life," Jerome continued. "You've been a mother to Malik, a partner to me. I promise to love and cherish you for the rest of our days." The crowd let out a collective as Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Jerome," she gushed, "I love you both so much. You and Malik are my whole world now." Malik felt sick to his stomach. He couldn't let this charade continue. With a deep breath, He pressed play. The sound of Vanessa's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. Once Jerome's out of the picture, we'll be set for life. That insurance policy is our ticket to paradise, baby. Marcus's reply was equally chilling. And the kid? We'll deal with him too. Can't have any loose ends. The recording ended, leaving the reception hall in stunned silence. All eyes turned to Vanessa, whose face had gone deathly pale. Jerome stumbled backward, shock and betrayal written across his features. Vanessa, what? How could you? Vanessa's mask of innocence crumbled. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape route. Jerome, baby, it's not what you think. I can explain. But Jerome wasn't listening. He turned to Malik, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and remorse. Son, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. Can you ever forgive me? Before Malik could respond, chaos erupted. Vanessa made a break for the exit, shoving guests out of her way. Marcus appeared from the crowd, grabbing Malik roughly by the arm. You little brat, he snarled. You've ruined everything. Jerome's protective instincts kicked in. He lunged at Marcus, tackling him to the ground. The two men grappled on the floor as guests screamed and scattered. Malik watched in horror as Marcus gained the upper hand, pinning Jerome down. He had to do something, had to help his father. Without thinking, Malik grabbed a nearby champagne bottle and brought it down on Marcus's head with all his might. The bottle shattered, and Marcus slumped to the side, dazed. Jerome scrambled to his feet, pulling Malik into a fierce hug. Are you okay? He asked, checking his son for injuries. Malik nodded, his whole body shaking with adrenaline. Dad, Vanessa, she's getting away. But as they turned towards the exit, they saw Vanessa being led back into the hall in handcuffs. Officer Daniels, an off-duty cop who'd been a guest at the wedding, had caught her trying to flee. Looks like we crashed the party just in time, Officer Daniels said, his grip firm on Vanessa's arm. As the police arrived to take statements and arrest Marcus, Malik felt the weight of the past few days finally lift from his shoulders. He'd done it. He'd saved his father and exposed the truth. Jerome knelt down beside Malik, his eyes brimming with tears. Son, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am for not listening to you. You were so brave, so smart. I'm proud to be your father. Malik threw his arms around Jerome, finally letting his own tears fall. I love you, Dad, he whispered. As they held each other, surrounded by the chaos of the ruined wedding, Malik realized that sometimes the greatest acts of love require the most courage. He'd faced his fears, stood up to evil, and protected the person he loved most in the world. In that moment, despite everything they'd been through, Malik knew that he and his father would be okay. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. The chaos at the wedding reception swirled around Malik and Jerome like a tempest. Guests murmured in shock, some openly weeping at the betrayal they'd just witnessed. Vanessa, her pristine white dress now a mockery of innocence, was being led away in handcuffs by Officer Daniels. Jerome stood frozen, his eyes locked on the woman he'd nearly pledged his life to. How could I have been so blind? He whispered, his voice cracking. Malik reached for his father's hand, squeezing it tightly. It's not your fault, Dad. She fooled everyone. A commotion near the exit snapped them both to attention. Marcus, taking advantage of the confusion, had broken free from the groomsmen restraining him. He barreled towards the door, shoving guests aside in his desperation to escape. Stop him! Officer Daniel shouted, but his hands were full with a struggling Vanessa. Without hesitation, Malik sprinted after Marcus, his small size allowing him to weave through the crowd. He caught up just as Marcus reached the parking lot, grabbing the man's suit jacket. Marcus whirled around, his face contorted with rage. Let go, you little. His words cut off as Jerome tackled him from behind, sending all three of them sprawling onto the asphalt. Malik's head cracked against the pavement, stars exploding behind his eyes. Malik. Jerome's panic voice seemed to come from far away. Son, are you okay? Malik blinked, trying to focus. He saw his father grappling with Marcus. The two men locked in a desperate struggle. Despite the ringing in his ears, Malik forced himself to his feet. He had to help his dad, but before he could move, Marcus landed a vicious blow to Jerome's jaw. Jerome stumbled backward, dazed. Marcus scrambled to his feet, his eyes wild as they landed on Malik. "You," he snarled. "This is all your fault, you meddling brat." He lunged for Malik, who tried to backpedal but found himself trapped against a parked car. Marcus's hand closed around Malik's throat, lifting him off his feet. "I should have dealt with you from the start," Marcus hissed. Malik clawed at the hand crushing his windpipe, black spots dancing at the edges of his vision. He could hear his father shouting, the sound of running feet, but it all seemed distant and unreal. Just as consciousness began to slip away, the pressure on Malik's throat suddenly vanished. He crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. Through watery eyes, he saw Marcus sprawled nearby, Officer Daniels standing over him with a taser. "It's over," the officer said, his voice hard as he cuffed Marcus. "You're under arrest." Jerome rushed to Malik's side, gathering him into a fierce embrace. "Oh God, Malik, I'm so sorry. Are you hurt?" Malik shook his head, still struggling to catch his breath. "I'm okay, Dad," he wheezed. "We got them. It's over." But even as the words left his mouth, Malik couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The way Marcus had looked at him, with such raw hatred, it didn't make sense. This felt bigger than just a simple insurance scam. As paramedics arrived to check on Malik and the other injured guests, Officer Daniels approached them, his face grim. "Mr. Carter, Malik," he said, "I need you both to come down to the station. There are complications we need to discuss." Jerome frowned. "Complications? What do you mean?" Officer Daniels glanced around, lowering his voice. "Not here. It's not safe. Please, trust me on this." The ride to the police station was tense and silent. Malik's mind raced, trying to piece together what could possibly make their situation even more complicated. Beside him, Jerome sat rigid, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. At the station, they were led to a small conference room. Officer Daniels closed the door behind them, his face etched with concern. "I'm sorry to drag you both here like this," he began, "but what we've uncovered goes far beyond a simple murder plot." He pulled out a thick file, spreading photos and documents across the table. Malik leaned in, his eyes widening as he recognized faces in the pictures. There was Vanessa, of course, and Marcus. But there were others too. People he'd seen at the wedding, neighbors, even his dad's boss. "What is all this?" Jerome asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Officer Daniels took a deep breath. "We've been tracking a sophisticated crime ring for months. Insurance fraud, money laundering, even human trafficking. We had no idea how deep it went until today." He pointed to a photo of an elegant older woman Malik vaguely recognized from the neighborhood. "This is Eleanor Blackwood. She's the mastermind behind it all. And Jerome, she's been targeting you for a very specific reason." Jerome's brow furrowed. "I don't understand. I've never even met this woman." "No," Officer Daniels said softly, "but your father did." The room fell silent as the implications of those words sank in. Malik looked up at his father, seeing the shock and confusion on his face. "My father," Jerome whispered, "but he died when I was a baby, in a car accident." Officer Daniels shook his head. "I'm afraid that's not true. Your father, James Carter, was a key witness in a federal case against Eleanor Blackwood 25 years ago. He was placed in witness protection, along with you and your mother." Malik felt like the floor was tilting beneath him. His grandfather, alive? His whole family history a lie? Jerome slumped in his chair, his face ashen. "All this time, why didn't my mother ever tell me?" "To protect you," Officer Daniels said gently. "But somehow, Blackwood found out who you were. She's been plotting her revenge for years, using Vanessa to get close to you." Malik's mind whirled. But why go through all this? Why not just hurt Dad directly? Officer Daniels' expression darkened. Because hurting him wasn't enough. She wanted to destroy everything he loved, to make him suffer like she believed your grandfather had made her suffer. The weight of it all crashed down on Malik. The danger wasn't over. If anything, it was worse than they'd imagined. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice small. Officer Daniels leaned forward, his eyes intense. "We need your help. Both of you. Eleanor Blackwood is still out there, and she won't stop until she gets what she wants. We need to draw her out, to end this once and for all." Jerome shook his head vehemently. "No, absolutely not. I won't put my son in danger." But Malik stood up, his chin raised defiantly. "Dad, we have to. This isn't just about us anymore. Think of all the people she's hurt, all the families she's destroyed. We can't let her keep doing this." Jerome looked at his son, a mixture of pride and fear in his eyes. "Malik, you don't understand. These people are dangerous. I can't lose you." Malik took his father's hand. "You won't. We're in this together, remember? And now we know the truth. That's more powerful than anything they can throw at us." Officer Daniels nodded approvingly. "Your son is right, Jerome. Knowledge is our greatest weapon. And with your help, we can finally bring Blackwood to justice." For a long moment, Jerome said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right. What's the plan?" As Officer Daniels began to outline their strategy, Malik felt a strange mix of fear and determination settle in his chest. He thought of all the lies, all the pain that had led them to this moment. But he also thought of the truth, the strength of his family, the power of doing what was right. They had uncovered a twisted web of deceit and cruelty, one that stretched back decades and threatened to destroy everything they held dear. But in that moment, Malik knew with absolute certainty that they would prevail, not because they were stronger or smarter than their enemies, but because they had something Eleanor Blackwood and her cronies could never understand: the unbreakable bond of love and trust between a father and son. As the night deepened and plans were made, Malik caught his father's eye. In that silent exchange, he saw everything he needed to know. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And in the end, justice would prevail. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Malik and Jerome were moved to a safe house, their every movement monitored by a team of undercover officers. Officer Daniels briefed them on the intricate details of Eleanor Blackwood's operation, revealing a network of corruption that stretched from the highest levels of government to the darkest corners of the criminal underworld. Through it all, Malik couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The pieces fit together too neatly, the narrative too clean. As he pored over the files Officer Daniels had provided, a nagging doubt gnawed at the back of his mind. It was on the third night, as Malik lay awake listening to the steady rhythm of his father's breathing in the next room, that the realization hit him like a thunderbolt. He bolted upright, his heart racing. "Dad," he called out, his voice urgent. "Dad, wake up." Jerome appeared in the doorway moments later, bleary-eyed but alert. "What is it, son? What's wrong?" Malik's words tumbled out in a rush. "The photos, Dad. The ones Officer Daniels showed us. They were too perfect, too staged. And the timing of it all, it doesn't make sense." Jerome frowned, sitting on the edge of Malik's bed. "What are you saying?" Malik took a deep breath, forcing himself to slow down. I think Officer Daniels is working with Blackwood. This whole thing, it's a trap." For a moment, Jerome said nothing, his face a mask of disbelief. But as the implications of Malik's words sank in, his expression hardened. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Now." They moved silently through the darkened safe house, gathering what few possessions they had. As they reached the front door, a floorboard creaked behind them. "Going somewhere?" Officer Daniels' voice was cold, all pretense of friendliness gone. Malik and Jerome turned slowly, finding themselves face to face with a man they trusted, his gun trained steadily on them. "I have to admit," Daniels said, a humorless smile twisting his lips, "I'm impressed." I didn't think you'd figure it out so quickly. Especially not the kid. Jerome pushed Malik behind him, shielding him with his body. Why? He demanded. Why go through all of this? Daniels shrugged. Money, power. The usual reasons. Blackwood's operation is too big to take down. So I decided to join her instead. And you, Jerome Carter, are the key to cementing my place in her inner circle. Malik's mind raced, searching for a way out. His eyes darted around the room, landing on a heavy vase on a nearby table. If he could just create a distraction. It won't work, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. Whatever Blackwood's planning, it won't bring back what she lost. Revenge won't heal her pain. Daniels laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. This isn't about healing, kid. It's about power. And once we have you and your father, Blackwood will have all the power she needs. In that moment, Malik saw something shift in his father's eyes. A fire ignited, burning away the last traces of doubt and fear. You're wrong, Jerome said, his voice ringing with conviction. Power built on lies and cruelty will always crumble. My father understood that, and so do we. With a speed Malik had never seen before, Jerome lunged forward, knocking Daniel's gun aside. The two men grappled, crashing into furniture as they fought for control. Malik seized his chance. He grabbed the vase and brought it down on Daniel's head with all his might. The officer crumpled to the floor, unconscious. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then Jerome pulled Malik into a fierce embrace. You did it, son, he whispered. You saved us both. As sirens wailed in the distance, the real police, alerted by the commotion, Malik felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had faced the darkness together, father and son, and emerged stronger for it. In the days that followed, the truth came to light. Eleanor Blackwood's empire crumbled, brought down not by violence or vengeance, but by the unwavering courage of a boy who refused to let evil triumph. As Malik watched the news reports, surrounded by the warmth of his father's presence, he realized that the greatest power of all lay not in wealth or influence, but in the bonds of love and trust that could weather any storm. The road ahead would not be easy. There were still questions to be answered, wounds to be healed. But Malik knew, with unshakable certainty, that as long as he and his father stood together, they could face anything the world threw their way. And in that knowledge, he found a peace that no amount of danger or deceit could ever take away. The dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Malik stood at the window of the safe house, his small frame silhouetted against the growing light. The events of the past few days weighed heavily on his young shoulders, but a spark of determination burned in his eyes. Jerome approached, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. You okay, champ? Malik nodded, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. I was just thinking about everything that's happened. About Vanessa and Marcus and Officer Daniels, Jerome finished, his voice tight with barely contained anger. The betrayal of the corrupt officer had shaken them both to the core, but it had also steeled their resolve. They knew now that they could trust no one but each other. We need to end this, Dad, Malik said, turning to face his father. For good. Jerome knelt down, meeting his son's eyes. I know, but it's dangerous. These people, they're not going to stop until they get what they want. Malik's jaw set in a determined line. Then we'll have to stop them first. As they discussed their next move, a sharp knock at the door made them both jump. Jerome motioned for Malik to stay back as he approached cautiously. Who is it? He called out. Special Agent Sarah Thompson, FBI, came the reply. We need to talk, Mr. Carter. It's about Eleanor Blackwood. Jerome and Malik exchanged a wary glance. After Daniel's betrayal, they were hesitant to trust any law enforcement. But they also knew they couldn't hide forever. With a deep breath, Jerome opened the door. Agent Thompson stood before them, her dark skin gleaming with a thin sheen of sweat, her eyes sharp and alert. She held up her badge, allowing Jerome to inspect it closely. May I come in? She asked. What I have to say isn't for prying ears. Once inside, Agent Thompson wasted no time getting to the point. We've been tracking Blackwood's operation for years, she explained, but she's always been one step ahead of us. Until now. She turned to Malik, a hint of admiration in her voice. Your actions at the wedding, they've thrown her entire organization into chaos. For the first time, we have a real chance to bring her down. Malik felt a mix of pride and fear at her words. But what about Officer Daniels? How do we know we can trust you? Agent Thompson's expression softened. You don't. And after what you've been through, I don't blame you for being cautious. But right now, we're your best shot at ending this nightmare. Jerome and Malik shared a long look, years of trust and understanding passing between them in that silent exchange. Finally, Jerome nodded. What do you need us to do? He asked. Agent Thompson laid out the plan. They would use Jerome and Malik as bait, drawing Blackwood out of hiding. It was risky, but with the full backing of the FBI, they stood a chance of finally bringing her to justice. As night fell, Malik found himself in the back of an unmarked van, his heart pounding in his chest. Jerome sat beside him, tension radiating from every line of his body. Remember, Agent Thompson's voice crackled through their earpieces. Stick to the plan. We'll be watching your every move. The van doors opened, and father and son stepped out into the cool night air. They were back at their old house, the place where this nightmare had begun. As they approached the front door, Malik's keen eyes caught a flicker of movement in an upstairs window. Dad, he whispered, someone's inside. Jerome nodded imperceptibly, his hand tightening on Malik's shoulder. They entered the house, every creak of the floorboards setting their nerves on edge. Well, a silky voice drifted from the shadows. The prodigal son returns. Eleanor Blackwood stepped into the light, her elegant features twisted into a cruel smile. She was older than Malik had expected, but there was a dangerous energy about her that belied her years. I must admit, she continued, circling them like a predator, I underestimated you, Malik. You're every bit as clever as your grandfather was. Malik's eyes widened at the mention of the grandfather he'd never known. What do you want from us? He demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. Blackwood's laugh was cold and brittle. What? My dear boy, I've already taken everything I wanted. Your father's reputation, your family's peace of mind, and now I'll take your futures. She snapped her fingers, and suddenly they were surrounded. Marcus emerged from the kitchen, his face a mask of barely contained rage. And there, to Malik's shock, was Vanessa, looking far less glamorous than she had at the wedding, but no less dangerous. You see, Blackwood purred, family is such a fragile thing, so easily broken, just like your grandfather broke mine. As she spoke, Malik's mind raced. He thought of the files Agent Thompson had shown them, of the lives Blackwood had ruined in her quest for vengeance. And in that moment, he understood something profound. You're wrong, he said, his voice ringing out clear and strong. Family isn't about blood or revenge. It's about love and trust and doing what's right even when it's hard. Blackwood's smile faltered, confusion flickering across her face. What are you babbling about, child? Malik stepped forward, ignoring his father's attempt to pull him back. I know what my grandfather did. He stood up to you, even though it cost him everything. And now we're going to do the same. As if on cue, the house erupted into chaos. FBI agents poured in from every entrance, their shouts of FBI, freeze, drowning out Blackwood's shriek of rage. In the confusion, Marcus made a desperate lunge for Malik. But Jerome was faster, tackling the man to the ground with a ferocity born of paternal instinct. Vanessa, seeing the writing on the wall, tried to slip away. But Malik, drawing on a courage he didn't know he possessed, stuck out his foot and sent her sprawling. As the dust settled and handcuffs clicked into place, Malik found himself face to face with Eleanor Blackwood one last time. The woman who had caused so much pain, who had nearly destroyed his family, now looked small and defeated. It's over, Malik said softly. All of this, it didn't bring back what you lost. It just created more pain. For a moment, something like regret flickered in Blackwood's eyes. But then it was gone, replaced by cold fury as she was led away. In the aftermath, as statements were taken and evidence catalogued, Malik and Jerome clung to each other, the reality of their ordeal finally sinking in. "I'm so proud of you, son," Jerome whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved us all." Malik looked up at his father, seeing the love and admiration shining in his eyes. "We saved each other, Dad. That's what family does." As dawn broke once more, Malik and Jerome stood on their front porch, watching as the last of the FBI vehicles pulled away. Agent Thompson approached, a smile on her face. "You two make quite a team," she said. "The Bureau could use more people like you." Jerome chuckled, ruffling Malik's hair. "Maybe in a few years. For now, I think we've had enough excitement." As Agent Thompson drove away, Malik turned to his father. "What happens now?" Jerome knelt down, meeting his son's gaze. "Now we heal. We move forward. And we never forget how precious this is, what we have right here." Malik nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. More than you'll ever know." As they turned to go inside, a flutter of white caught Malik's eye. An envelope lay on the welcome mat, his name written in elegant script. With trembling hands, he opened it, reading aloud, "Dear Malik, your bravery and integrity have touched my heart in ways I cannot express. You've shown me the error of my ways, and though I must face the consequences of my actions, I want you to know that you've given me hope for redemption. Your grandfather would be proud. Eleanor Blackwood." Malik looked up at his father, seeing his own mix of emotions reflected back at him. In that moment, they both understood that their ordeal had changed them forever. But it had also shown them the true strength of their bond, a love that could weather any storm. As they stepped into their home, ready to face whatever the future might bring, Malik felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew now that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he and his father would face them together as a family. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its warm light over the Carter home. And inside, a father and son began the journey of healing, their bond stronger than ever, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the unbreakable power of love.